Are you new to DeFi Kingdoms and you wish to buy a hero, but you have no idea where to begin, what is good or what is bad? Well, this video hopefully will help you. The aim of this video is to not tell you exactly what to buy, because what you end up buying depends entirely on your own personal circumstances and what opportunities you find in the market. The video does help to hopefully aim to explain what some of the criteria are for selecting a good starter hero to help you make the right choice and to get off to a really good start in DeFi Kingdoms. So obviously this video is targeted more towards newer players, although it might have some tidbits of information that might be of relevance or help to some more experienced people in DeFi Kingdoms as well. So towards the end of the video, after I go through these criteria, I'm just going to quickly browse through the market and just see what I spot as a potential good option as well, just to sort of put these thoughts into practice. Alrighty, so let's begin. Now, from the last video, I did neglect to show one of the best parts of the DFK Tavern. So within the DFK Tavern, let me just get out of this, you do have a tab on the main site called All-in-One DFK Resources. This has a fantastic set of pictures. They're not necessarily created by the person who runs the tavern, but they have been sourced just through probably Discord and uploaded just for anyone to refer to and download. So some of the things here are, you've got the 4 professions and you've got the stats that they actually require to do well, and you've got lists of heroes that do them well. Now this is a bit misleading, so we'll go through this in a bit more detail later on. You've also got here the summoning tree. So basically whenever you summon, you are going to want to try to summon a matching basic pair to create, or to aim to create, the advanced version. So this is here as a reference to what to look out for when you do decide to summon. You've also got this is really important as well, you've got summoning jewel costs per hero. So whenever you summon, each hero is going to have its own individual cost for jewel as far as summoning. So let's say you may not have a Gen 0 unless you have a lot of money, or you bought in early, in which case congratulations. Most of you are probably going to start with ideally a Gen 1 or a Gen 2. Now bear in mind that there is a cost to summoning that is based on these jewels, and that goes up by 2 jewel each time based on how many summons that hero has done. So the more you summon with a certain hero, the higher it's going to cost. And below this summoning jewel cost, you also have a graph which shows, generally speaking, what the basic and then the advanced professions are good at in terms of profession. Now this is a general guide and each hero is slightly different. You've also got the summoning rarity chance. So basically, if you look at this graph, you go from left to right, you've got the most common to the rarest, which are the mythics, and it outlines the percentages that have been data mined as far as what you are likely to get. So let's just say you have 2 commons. Most likely, unless you can find a good bargain in the tavern, most likely for new players, you might start off summoning 2 commons. So the odds of getting another common is 58%. The odds of getting something better would be 42%. And even at the top tiers, so rare and onwards, there is a 15% chance, so about 1 in 6, of getting a rare onwards, which is actually pretty good. So you can also use this for your decision making as far as what rarity you want to buy in the tavern. So when you are selecting a hero, you want to look at how well it can summon. So you want to think about the cost of summoning. Obviously cheaper is better long term. Now in terms of generations, the lower generation you have, the cheaper it is going to be to summon. So let's take a look at that. So excluding Gen 0s, assuming you don't buy one of those, the Gen 1s are going to start from 16 and go all the way up to 34 jewel, whereas the Gen 2s are going to cost 26 and go all the way up to 42 jewel. Now when you get to Gen 3 onwards, it's going to get pretty darn expensive, and it's already going to cost the current hero floor price. So I would personally try to avoid selecting Gen 3 onwards if you want to summon. Now if you do find one that is a good quester and you just want to do quests, go to town, purchase it with my blessing. But if you want to summon, I would personally only choose a Gen 1 or a Gen 2 to begin with. So the next thing to look at is the summoning count. So the more summons you have and the more full the bar is, the cheaper it's actually going to be, depending on the generation, to summon with that hero. And that bar also, and the number determines how many summons you have left. So if you do really like the hero and you want to produce many more heroes with that one, you're going to want to have a higher summoning count. So that's summoning. That's something to look for an initial character. Now, the other thing you want to look at is quest potential. Now, when I say quests, this should be categorized into different things. So right now, the main thing that everyone is thinking about is professions. So your mining, your gardening, your fishing, and your foraging. Apart from that, further down in the DFK roadmap, there is going to be PvP and PvE adventure quests, and that's probably going to have different criteria, going to rely on different stats, skills, synergies, etc. So put this to one side, but it is something that down the road will become important. But just for today, think about professions. So you're going to want to pick a hero which has stats that are relevant to the profession. Okay, so the profession competency is impacted by the class. Some classes do some things better than others. And your personal hero's stat and profession bonus. So let's just go take a look at that quickly. So here's one which is nice and cheap. So you've got a green bonus. This is a flat score bonus. So probably a base luck of 7, which is increased to 9 for this priest. And you've got agility. So this agility, what this basically means is that as the priest levels up, there is more of a chance of getting a stat increase on this stat compared to the normal stat increase odds based on the other stats. So let's say this priest was a thief. So the thief has very high agility and luck, makes a great fisher for that reason. This one has all 3 synergies. So if this was a thief, I'd say this is going to be a fantastic fisher. But it's a priest, and priests have pretty shocking luck and agility, so it's not going to work for this one. Okay, so you're going to have to bear these 2 things in mind and also look at the jewel price for the hero. You may have a certain budget, and jewels aren't cheap. Right now they're hovering around $8. So yeah, bear that in mind. And you also want to think about your personal aim and intention. So I've suggested these for a new player. Look at its ability to summon, as well as its ability in quests, either directly as a hero or as a summoner for future more advanced heroes to get good professional skills. Okay, so just think about these things and let's move on. Okay, so the next thing to consider is, first, what are these professions? It's important to know so that you know what heroes you want to choose and so that you can plan your intention for your first hero. So there are 4 professions, and I would sort of pair 2 of them together and 2 of the others together. So let me explain. The first profession here is mining. So mining requires the stats of strength and endurance. Now what mining does, it lets you access your locked jewels, so it takes away a certain quantity of locked jewel per day, and it can also give you gold. And also, there are some sort of rarer treasures which we know nothing about. So that's basically mining. Then gardening, what this does is you require wisdom and you require vitality. So gardening boosts how you perform in the garden. As in the garden you have liquidity pools which have a certain APR. So my understanding is that if you have a gardener active for the gardening quest, this will increase your liquidity pool APR by a certain amount. So that's gardening. Now, foraging and fishing. What both of these do, these will, in my opinion, as far as I know, help you get items from the game that you can use to resell or maybe to produce certain other items like potions, maybe some weapons and other equipment. So foraging itself requires good dexterity as well as good intelligence, and fishing, this will get you some sort of different items, and this requires a good amount of agility and a good amount of luck. Now, there is something that is very important to bear in mind that I think has been not so often recognized. It's actually the amount of time it takes to do these quests. Let me explain. Here it says, for each 10 minutes a hero spends mining, 1 stamina is consumed. So basically, that means that mining is very slow as a quest. So if you have a character who has 25 stamina, then that means it will take 250 minutes, which is a little bit over 4 hours, at level 1 at least, to burn through the stamina for that character. Now, if it takes 4 hours to finish this quest, and it takes about 8 hours to recharge the stamina, then by my very basic math, that means that maybe only 3 heroes at a time, if you're rotating all day, at least at the lower levels, can do mining. And it's the same story with gardening. You might have 3 heroes who you designate as gardeners in rotation, and so that will mean that the gardeners and the miners that you have, they're going to have to be pretty top-notch. However, when you go down to foraging, foraging consumes 5 stamina after a brief period of time spent foraging, 15 seconds. So you've got 25 stamina, and this uses 5 every 15 seconds. So if my mental math works, that means every 75 seconds, you'll burn through stamina. This means you can have a heck of a lot of heroes doing foraging and fishing to get as many items as you can. So just moving forward, if you picture yourself having dozens of heroes, many heroes, you're probably going to, at least just in terms of profession quests, actual adventure quests and combat are a different kettle of fish. Just in terms of professions, you're going to probably want to have 3 heroes on rotation. Now, if you do level them up and they do get more stamina, this may reduce to 2. So you're going to have 3 to 2 heroes in the end doing mining, 3 to 2 for gardening, and I've got no idea how many. You're going to want a lot of heroes to do foraging and fishing. So these may actually be viable professions to start off with, because whatever you produce, there may be a certain degree of demand for these heroes, even if they're not the world's best heroes, throughout the game as we move along. That's my theory anyway. Others may disagree. Okay, so the next question is, what classes are actually good at these professions? So when we're at the DFK Tavern / all-in-one website, you can download this picture. This will just briefly show you as a snapshot what is good, what these classes are good at. So there are 2 pictures on this DFK Tavern website that might help you. There's this one, which outlines all of the classes in terms of stats and job, as well as a bar graph down here, which outlines the classes, and it's color-based, and you've got the 8 basics on the left and then the 4 advanced on the right. So you can use either one of these to work out what might be good at what. Okay, so first things first, the warrior and the knight, the more melee-oriented classes, these are the ones that are good at mining on average. So you can see the scores here, they're relatively high. The knight is slightly better than the warrior, but not by much. These also produce a dark knight, which is also very good at mining. Now moving on to gardening, which requires wisdom and vitality. The priest and the wizard are the best basic classes at this, followed by the monk, but the priest and the wizard do produce the summoner, and the summoner is a fantastic gardener. Now look at this, it's quite interesting. The knight and the warrior, they are not good gardeners by any stretch of the imagination. However, they do create a paladin, and the paladin is even very slightly much better than the summoner at gardening. Now that's assuming that all things are equal as far as skill bonuses. So that's something to bear in mind as well. Alrighty, so when we go to foraging, the best basic classes is the archer, followed by the wizard and the priest. So the wizard and the priest, they can actually produce a pretty good line of foragers as well as the gardeners. So you see the priest and the wizard here producing the summoner, good gardener. They also produce the summoner here, which is the equal best forager. Alright, so now we've also got fishing, and the best basic class for fishing is the thief, followed by, quite distantly, the pirate and the monk. Now, if you do produce this pirate and the monk, you will get a ninja, which is the best fisher. So that's something to consider as well for your decision making as far as heroes based on what you want to get. Okay, so just coming back to this picture, you do want to think about your personal intentions when you first start the game. So let's think about this in terms of professions. So as far as professions, if you have a lot of locked jewel, you may want to choose a miner because this will help you unlock that jewel, which you can spend or use or reinvest more quickly. So mining is an option if that's what you're keen on. As a gardener, you would do this if you have a lot of resources or jewel kept in the liquidity pools and you want to increase the APRs for that. Now, if you are a new player and you don't have much in the liquidity pool or much unlocked jewel, but you do want a hero that can hit the ground running doing quests that will yield you items, I would personally recommend picking a good forager or a good summoner to produce more good foragers and or fishers. That's my personal pick. Okay, so I've just produced this little graphic which feel free to download. I'm going to put the link in the description, so double check that. This is what is, in my opinion, and other people may have different opinions, when you're looking at certain classes, what you're going to look for as potential options for selection. Alrighty, so starting with these two melee characters, the warrior and the knight, both of them are pretty good miners, the best in class, and they both produce one of the best in class miners, which is the paladin. So mining skills, i.e. strength and endurance, are good on either of these classes in and of themselves, as well as to create a paladin. I've also said here, and just bear with me for this one, gardening could be a potential option if you are selecting one of these characters. Why do you ask? Because warriors and knights are both terrible, terrible, terrible gardeners. Their wisdom and vitality is not very good. However, the paladin does have really, really good wisdom and vitality. So if you did have this pair and they did manage to produce a paladin, about 20% odds, this could be a fantastic gardener, and you might want to use them, or you might want to resell them, because a gardening paladin will probably be in very high demand. So those are my picks for this pair. Let's go down to the next pair, the archer and the thief, who together produce a dark knight. Now the archer himself, the best class that they have, or the best profession, excuse me, would be for foraging, because they have quite a lot of dexterity, if not so much intelligence. They are slightly better than the wizard and the priest, the casters, at foraging, and together with the thief, the dark knight is actually a respectable forager. If you do look at the graphs, you'll see that the dark knight is within the top three, with summoner and pretty much tied with the ninja as far as being the best foragers. So that's an option for the dark knight, although also he's probably going to be a pretty good miner. So as far as the second choices for the archer and the thief, I would put down mining as well, simply because if you are a min-maxer and you did have these stats on the archer and the thief, and you did produce a dark knight, and they did happen to get strength and endurance as well, that is going to be a very, 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 very good miner who could either mine or you could sell for maybe quite a bit of jewel. All right, but in and of themselves, they are terrible miners. You're probably not going to use them for mining. So yeah, the thief himself is also the best fisher, but just bear in mind that in a summoning pair, you are not going to get an award-winning fisher with the Dark Knight. Let's take a look. Dark Knight's fishing is, yeah, pretty much as bad as it can get. So yeah, if you do get a thief, you might want to consider him more as a soul quester rather than as a summoner for the purpose of producing a Dark Knight. But if you do get good summoning stats from what I mentioned before, it's also an option, and there is a lot of randomness as well. So for all you know, you're going to get a fantastic Dark Knight out of a fishing thief. All right, moving on to the next pair, pirate and monk. So this might be a bit controversial. For both of these classes, I am saying that what you are going to aim for primarily might be fishing. So let's have a look at the pirate himself. So the pirate is the second best fisher, but that is quite a bit of a distance away from the thief as a fisher. And the monk is probably equal third as far as fishing, but again, not fantastic. So why do I recommend fishing when they both have actually mining as their best attributes? Let me explain. So these two produce a ninja. Now a ninja, if you look at his fishing ability, is the best. Now it's not a massive amount over a thief, but for the min-maxers in the games and the people who want something really good, ninjas are going to be the way to go. They're also very respectable foragers. So going back to my picture, if you did get a forager pirate and if you did get a monk pirate, they might make a pretty good forager. I would say that fishing and foraging, personally, I would prioritize over mining, because even though these are not the worst miners, if you remember what I mentioned before, once you do start getting multiple heroes, these are probably going to quickly become outdated and obsolete as miners, because these ones and the Dark Knight do a much, much better job. And because of how slow it is and the maximum of about 3, you're not going to last long as long-term questers in that regards. Now, with that said, the monk himself, just bear in mind, the monk is probably on average the worst quester, because his stats are very generalized. He is not winning any awards within these 8 as far as doing any of these skills. He's not a bad gardener, but the casting classes, the priest and the wizard, do it better. And they also produce something that's much better. So just bear those things in mind. So the final pair is the wizard and the priest. Now, these are both, as far as basic classes go, some of the best gardeners. So if you want to start off gardening and getting good yields from your liquidity pool, you might want to look into having either of these, preferably with the bonus gardening synergies as far as the skill and profession bonuses. And the next best skills for them would be definitely foraging. So going back to this graph, we'll see that the wizard is slightly bit of a better forager than a priest, and is actually pretty close to the archer as far as the ability to forage. So back to production. You'll notice that the wizard and the priest, they both have good synergies to produce a summoner who is an excellent gardener and forager. And if we go back to this graph, you'll see that the summoner does have the second best gardening abilities, closely behind the paladin, but also is the best forager. Okay, so those are my picks for these pair. Alrighty, so I understand that some people may have different opinions. If you do, please comment, please let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love for this to be a place where we can exchange ideas. Okay. All right, so the next question is, what sort of class are you personally going to look for? Alrighty, so if you're really keen on a miner, then the obvious choices are to get a warrior or a knight because they're very good miners and they produce good miners. Now, if you are keen on gardening, the best choice would be picking a wizard or a priest. While the paladin does slightly edge out the summoner as far as gardening capabilities, just bear in mind that the warrior and the knight both suck at gardening. So as a starter, that's probably not what you're going to look at. Now, let's say you are a forager. The best choice would potentially be an archer, because with the combination of a thief, it does make a respectable dark knight, and it does have the highest foraging stats. However, I would also not overlook the wizard and the priest pair. They do make pretty good foragers, and if the price is right, you may find that's the right one for you. And they also produce the summoner who is the best forager. So I would say these are also good foraging options. And if you had to choose one, all things being equal, I would say the wizard is slightly better than the priest, but that all depends on that individual character's stats. Now, if you do want a fisher, this might be a bit contentious. I would personally go for a pirate or a monk if you do get these characters with the intention of summoning forward towards a ninja. However, if you are getting just your initial character and you think that they're not going to be something that produces a dynasty of fishers, then a thief would definitely be a good option. Now, also just bear in mind the prices and bear in mind what the market thinks, because the market is going to weight things as being more expensive if they are best in class, which the thief is. You might find that there is some decent value out there for a pirate and a monk who are also not as good, but not terrible fishers. So that's something to bear in mind as well. All right, now let's go to the actual market. So let's start off with the heroes. Now the floor price is currently 32 jewel. This is actually going down quite a lot. So just as a side note, as far as I know, the new update, which may include profession quests, is happening on Saturday. So you may want to bear that in mind. So if the price of heroes is slightly going down, could you consider waiting a few days? Possibly. Now let's have a look at the absolute dirt cheapest hero on the market and find out why he's so cheap. So we've got a wizard, and he is completely sterile. He cannot summon. So you're not going to summon with this guy. What can he bring to the table in terms of skills? He's a miner. Terrible. Agility and luck, both designed for fishing. This is terrible. Okay, this is a shocking hero. Do not touch this one. Moving onwards. You've got some uncommons, which are pretty cheap, and these ones can actually summon. Now, it's a Gen 3, so as far as a summoner, I'm going to say that there is not much long-term potential here. So I'm just going to skip those and move down. Let's get slightly more expensive. 35 jewel, still dirt cheap. Here we've got an uncommon pirate. All right, so what have we got here? So he specializes in foraging, and he's got dexterity. So dexterity plus intelligence, total of 16. plus a 10% bonus will get you something like 17.6. Not a terrible forager, but he's not going to win any awards either. But look at him, he's Gen 4. He is a bit too expensive, he's going to be, as far as summoning, and he's not going to last you long anyway. So I'd say I'd put this guy as a very mediocre forager with very little summoning potential. So as far as a first hero goes, he's a bad choice. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fine-tune our selection criteria somewhat. So let's assume I'm a new player who does not have much in the liquidity pools or much locked jewel as a result. So I might want to avoid mining or gardening heroes to begin with, and I do want to get a forager or a fisher. Let's try both individually. So professional synergy of fishing. You can tick this or not tick this. If you tick this, it's obviously going to exclude people who may have good stat synergies but does not have the fishing bonus. So let's tick that, but let's just tick that and see what we've got. So we put fishing together with its prerequisite stats of agility and luck. So if I tick both of these, it will select heroes that have at least one of these. And let's say I want to produce a dynasty of fishes. I want to make sure that summoning is not terrible. I'm going to limit my options to look at up to Generation 2, because my opinion is Generation 3 onwards is too expensive. You may have a different opinion. You may wish to extend to Generation 3, but let's select based on these choices. Alrighty, so what did I do wrong? I haven't selected my classes. Okay, so as far as fishing classes, I'm going to look for a thief, who is good on his own, if not to summon more good fishes. But as far as summoning armies of fishes, pirates and monks would be the ones to go with. All right, so I've selected the, subclass, forgive me. Thief, main class, monk and pirate, and those attributes are still there, apply. This will only show us fishes of these classes. So, your monk, if you did start off as an initial hero, you'll see how generalized the stats are. He's not the best fisher. This one will get you a score of 16, plus about a 10% bonus. So 17.6 for a fisher is not terrible, but it's not mind-blowing as well. Now looking at his summoning abilities. So by the way, this one is an uncommon, so slightly better than the common. So slightly better stat generation as levels go on. Now he's a Gen 2, so as far as actual cost, so bear this in mind. Let's find the cost of a Gen 2. The first cost, because he has never summoned, which is why his bar is completely pink. The first cost is going to be 26, and then the next two are 28 and 30, and then he is out of summons, and you can't summon with him anymore. So, average cost of 28 jewels to summon with. Now, he does have the agility bonus for luck, not an awful fisher, potential option. He's only 55 jewels, that's pretty cheap. Now, if we do go to pirates who are slightly better fishers, here's a Gen 1, these are pretty cheap. So what's he got? He's got a luck bonus as well as an agility bonus. So that's a score of 19 for fishing. And if you do add 10%, so 20.9, he is a little bit better as a fisher. He is a Gen 1, so his summons will start off quite cheap. Whoops. Actually, no. Correct me. I'm wrong. Let's look at this summoning score. He's got 3 summons left out of 10. This means he has summoned 7 times. So if we look at the skills, he's going to start off with a summoning cost of 30 because he's got 3 to go, then 32, then 34. So he's going to be expensive to summoning with. He is mediocre. Let's move on. All right. Now we've got a rare here. So this one, what have we got? This one's got a score of 20 with a 10% bonus, and he's a rare. That's actually pretty good. Now the price has shot up quite a bit to 100 jewels. So just within your budget, you might find that this is something worth considering as well. Alrighty. Now, let's say you want to also alternatively get a forager. Let's change to foraging. Let's change to intelligence and dexterity. And let's change our classes. So the good foragers from my little guide would be an archer, potentially a pirate or a monk, and potentially a wizard and a priest. I would say they're all okay options to start off with for foraging. So, archer, pirate, monk, wizard, priest, archer, pirate, monk, wizard, priest, and subclasses as well. If you do get subclass synergy, that's good as well. Don't forget about the subclasses. I think they contribute maybe 20% to the stats as you level up over time. So, we've got foraging, intelligence, dexterity. Let's apply, see what we get. Alrighty, so starting off, I'm just going to look at the summons. I want full bars because they're going to be cheaper, and I want to look at quantity. So this one has a reasonable quantity. He's a Gen 2 pirate warrior. The warrior doesn't do much as far as foraging, but let's take a look. He's got intelligence, he's got foraging. This brings him to a total of 16. Pretty mediocre. Maybe move on as a first hero. So, are there any archers around? This one is going to be really expensive to summon with, but he does have pretty darn good abilities for foraging. So, as an initial quester, he's going to be great, but as a forager, he's going to start off quite expensive. So 3 out of 10. Just bear in mind that he's going to start a summoning cost from 30, which is a little bit over a Gen 2's starter cost if that Gen 2 was a virgin. So, moving on. What are some really good foragers? Let's look for a wizard or a priest. So we've got a wizard here, another Gen 1, priced at only 80 jewel. Not bad. Now, he has specialty in dexterity and intelligence, so 20. Score of 20 for foraging, plus a bonus. That brings him to 22. Pretty darn good forager. He's also got luck. Now, the interesting thing about luck, I would say don't write it off completely as a stat if that's what you do find, because luck also slightly increases chances to get rare items. Now, I don't know whether or not this is actually in professions or in adventure quests, aka combat, but it could be something right now, when the prices are low, relatively, to consider. Alrighty, so now, if I do want the absolute cheapest hero as far as a summoning goes, what I'm going to want to have is a Gen 1 with 10 out of 10 summons left. So, let's just reset the search criteria and find one of those. Okay. So, right now, I think it's going to happen in a later patch. You can specify the amount of summons, but that is not the case yet. Let's shoot all the way down to Generation 1. We've got no classes, and apply. All right, so let's look for the cheapest 10 out of 10 that we've got, and just see what lands as far as professions as well. So, the more expensive we go, the more summons they have, which you obviously need for cheaper and more summons. Let's see if we can get above 6. How expensive do we need to get closer to a 10 out of 10? Quite a few to search through. Next page. All right, so now we're looking at 80 jewel. So this will depend on your budget as well. Oh, here we are. We've got a 9 out of 10. Not too bad, only 80 jewel. So this is a monk, not an amazing profession, but what does he bring to the table? He does have fishing specialty, but that is bearing in mind with a 14 base, which is very low. So yeah, maybe 9 out of 10 for wizard. Again, strength, agility, fishing, they do nothing. Let's go to another one, because we want to ideally get both. So we've got 8 out of 10 at 85 for an uncommon. Mining, he's not the worst miner, but with a score of 18, could potentially be a minor option, but obviously the vitality and wisdom don't add anything. And when he summons to produce an advanced, he produces a ninja who does not mine. He fishes, so not useful. Alrighty, what else do we have? Let's see if we can get to a 9 or a 10. Let's just double check. For 90, what do we get with a thief? Now, he does have a 20 for foraging, which is pretty good, and he does have endurance stat, which does not help him too much, but if you did get a Dark Knight out of him, this could actually be a pretty darn good summoner to make a Dark Knight. So for 90 jewel, that's pretty cheap. I would actually consider him as a choice, but let's just have a look around for some others. 10 out of 10s, all right. Now what we're after for this guy is either gardening or foraging abilities. This actually helps both, which is nice, but mining is there, not great. So what is he good at? 21 for gardening, it's a respectable gardener, and a score of 16, a bit mediocre for foraging. But pretty good gardener with full summons at 90 jewel. I'd say that's a bargain. Let's find another one. We'll go for this monk. What does he do? Gardening. 16, a bit more mediocre. He's a common, maybe not. Uncommon warrior. Oh, he's only 4 out of 10. Yeah, what have we got here for this wizard? So he is a gardener or a forager. and you don't get any of that from this one, but he does have 10 out of 10. Where's the next 10 out of 10? We'll skip the monks because they're just not the best at professions, especially as a starting hero. You might want something with a bit more punch. Gardening, no. Yeah, these prices are going quite a bit up, so let's backtrack to this one that I saw before. This one would probably be my winner as an initial character. Decent forager, really good gardener if that's what you're after. So yeah, that would be the winner for gardening. Let's see if I can find one for a different profession. So as a newbie, maybe you want foraging or fishing if you don't have much of those. So let's find a class with 10 out of 10 that matches those. Are you a good fisher? 7 plus 10, 17. Not really. You produce a ninja who is a respectable forager. Maybe, but let's see what else we can find. So I'm looking for 9 or 10 out of 10, preferably 10. Nope. This will be easier once they patch it in. 10 out of 10 pirate. Foraging, strength, wisdom. Okay at mining, score of 16. As far as foraging, yeah, not much going on there as far as brilliant professions. Gardening. Now, this is one who could low-key produce a decent paladin. He does have gardening, but he does not have the wisdom or vitality that goes with it, and he does not have strength or endurance. So maybe if you're after a miner in a pinch, this could be one worth considering. But let's look for a fisher or a forager. Next page. 10 out of 10. So I'm probably skipping a few. If you wanted to take more time, you could probably take more time than I am. Alrighty, so dexterity plus intelligence, score of 20. Good forager. Very, very good forager. Fishing and luck, not amazing, but just bear in mind that luck is a potential extra bonus for profession quests, although that is not confirmed. But that is a decent buy too. But we're getting up to 105 jewel. All right, now, uncommon. Now, if this one has good skills, we're onto something. Specialty of gardening, that's what we're after. So 19 plus 10%, 20.9. Good gardener, not quite as good as the other one, but is also uncommon. So that might change things long-term, potentially. Dexterity is there as well, so respectable forager, which you would then pair with a wizard. So yeah, these are the thoughts that I'd be going through for picking a hero. We've got an archer here, and that is a very good forager. So on its own, it's a great forager, and it could produce a Dark Knight, which is also a good forager, worth considering as well. Alrighty, so I hope that makes sense as far as selection criteria for you. So think about the selection criteria, think about the classes and what they're good at, and think about whether or not you want to have your first character to be a great quester, or maybe a more average quester, let's say you want foraging, with potential to produce a more solid one. So wizards or priests or summoners, etc. All right, thank you so much for listening to this video. I do appreciate it. If you did find it helpful, please consider a like or subscribe. And please add in the comments if there's any other topics for videos, if you have any other questions or things you'd like to learn. And if I know about it, I'll do my best to post one for you. All right, have a great day, guys. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.